NK, great to have you on the episode. Could you just introduce yourself, what the organization that you run is, and give us a sense of the size so people have a sense of scale for what it is that you're doing? That would be lovely.
I'm NK Chaudhary, founder of Jaipur Rugs. Jaipur Rugs is connected with the 40,000 artisans in 600 villages. 85% of them is the women, and we export near about 60 countries. And we also have a company in US, Jaipur Rug Living, where we worked with more than 3,000 customers. And we have got the head office is in Atlanta, and we have got 130 people in our office in US. And the revenue is more than 50 million.
Thank you very much, NK. We'll get into a lot more about you and the organization. So thank you for that.
I would like quickly to take you through the journey of my life, which I call the University of Hard Rocks of Life, because it was only after my college that my real education began. I started my career selling shoes from a little shop that my father had started. I realized that there was very little room to grow, and I was offered a full-time job in a nationalized bank. I declined the offer as I wanted to do something of my own where I could enjoy what I do. So about 43 years ago, I started with 2 looms in my own house in a small town Churu in Rajasthan as a contractor manufacturer, producing rugs for the larger exporters in Jaipur. I borrowed $200 from my father to buy 2 looms and an old cycle to travel to weaver houses and day-to-day work. The beginning were humble, yet filled with challenges. One of the first challenges I faced was from my own family member. In those days, rug weaver belongs to untouchable class and were not given the same social standing as others. Given the strong class system in India, interaction was not only discouraged, but was looked down upon. I faced a lot of resistance from my own family members and neighbors, but I could not understand how could they may be different human beings. I feel so much love with weaving and weavers that I used to take my lunch and eat with weavers and their families beside the loom on which they made their carpets. I used to spend entire day working with them and learned the basic of weaving. I discovered and realized that some of the most beautiful rugs in the world were made by those people who did not have the most basic rights in the society. The only encouragement I had from my wife, who was not only supported me, but also sometimes provided the weavers with tea and food. Within 2 years, I established 10 looms in and around my village in Rajasthan, and therefore I further expanded as a contractor for next 8 years. After that, I moved to Jaipur to start my own export with my brother. In 1990, I moved to Gujarat, where I stayed for 8 years. In this period, I had the opportunity to train and develop a network of about 15,000 tribal men and women in the art of rug weaving. Initially, I faced the challenges working with the tribals who were not only welcoming the outsiders, but I knew that love, empathy, and respect could make the relationship much easier. Just in a matter of 3 4 years, they started to respect me as their guide. My interest of living in villages and being close to the nature made it easy for me to connect with the tribal people and grow this business. During that time, I was blessed with 3 daughters and then 2 sons in my society at that time. And even now, girl, girls get less priority than boys. My British friend Aile Cooper suggested that girls are often more efficient and more receptive. So my wife and I treated all our children equally, sent the girls to study in America, even though our family tradition strongly disapproved of sending a girl abroad alone. I encouraged all my children to take a deep interest in the American lifestyle so that when they finish their studies, they would have a better understanding of the customer needs. I told them that I considered myself as a weaver and thus they were daughter of a weaver and that weaving has become the biggest enjoyment in my life and they should never forget this. One thing I learned was to appreciate the wisdom that people at the grassroots generally have. Women manage home, food, children, and budget, and still take time to weave the carpets. They are probably some of the best managers in the world. In 1999, I separated from my brothers and started Jaipur Rugs from zero. I also established a company in USA to move closer to the customer. Initially, I had little knowledge of business and finance as I spent my time with weavers in villages. As a result, I had to face a lot of problems, and it was one of the most challenging moments of my life where I had to learn the things which I did not learn in last past 20 years of my life. I had already been very successful in creating a good name of myself for quality and quantity in carpet weaving. But once I started again, I had huge problems and failure for the first 3 years. Then I started to introspect. What went wrong? I realized that my past success has created a false feeling of goodness within me. I realized that good is the enemy of best, and I have developed a mental disease called euphoria. I was highly successful at working with the people at grassroots, but now I have to learn new skills and change my leadership style to run a global business. I observed that it was me who was restricting the growth of the organization as I was everywhere in each decision. So I have to remove myself, my perception from every decisions and use natural talent, wisdom and capability of the individual to see the things as they are, not as I want them to be. I was an ice cube, so losing myself was like melting the ice to become water, and it can be flexible and take any shape to become simple enough to let natural growth happen. Up to now, I relied on the entrepreneurial skills and leadership quality of the uneducated people, and they have gained a deep understanding of our business. But to support the rapid growth of the business, I had to hire fresh and experienced educated professionals. But they all put me upside down. That was the right time for me to learn how to deal with so-called professionals. I learned that knowledge is power, but too much knowledge and knowledge gained without practice develops ego. Practitioners sometimes get the skills without having the knowledge. To break the ego of the professionals, I started a learning initiative which we named Higher School of Unlearning. We made the professional work with our older uneducated managers in different departments to develop a deep understanding of the business processes. I also took the challenge to teach them the basic fundamentals to manage the business and people like ours, which they never learned in their school and colleges. We worked on the management philosophy, finding yourself through losing yourself. Finding yourself through losing yourself. The more I lose myself, the more I find myself. In 2004, we set up Jaipur Rugs Foundation to nurture the human connection at the grassroots. This in turn brought mindset change, empowering our artisans to develop the understanding of the customer needs. In early 2008, Professor C.K. Palad, who was one of the top management guru at that time, called me and asked me if I knew who he was. I replied, "Who does not know you?" But I was extremely surprised why he has called me. He said that he wanted to do a case study on our business model. And then I said that what we do is very simple. What if you write it, no one read it? Even my neighbors does not know me. But he explained me that our global supply chain was very unique by connecting the world poorest with the richest by enhancing the capability at the grassroots. I believe that innovation will be key for Jaipur Rugs to grow further. In 2014, we began an initiative to include our viewers in the product development and design process to unleash the creativity of the talented artisan we work with, and we termed it as Man Chaha project. Man Chaha in Hindi means freedom to design so that the artist puts in their heart and soul. Today, the Man Chaha project has won over 7 global awards. In 2017, one of the artisans, Bimla Devi, who never been out of her village, never went to school, surprised the world with her simple yet magical designs that went on to win the German Design Award. She also went to Germany to receive the award. I saw our artisan as human, but my daughter Kavita went a step further ahead and show an artist in them. My future vision for Jaipur Rugs is to create the best artisan proposition where each and every of our artisan will become the artist and shall be connected to the world of design. This shall allow the artisan to a greater share of the wealth they produce. Furthermore, I see Jaipur Rugs as a platform of connecting the end consumer with the artisans so that they can both emotionally connect with each other. This shall lead the utmost level of dignity of our artisans. In 2019, Raj Sisodia, in his book, The Healing Organization, published a case study on Jaipur Rugs about the power of innocence and how the business can heal the society and the customers. I believe that innovation would be the future of the management science. Innocent people have the power to see and understand the things which others can't. This will transform the business around the world. I often say, we don't sell carpets. We sell the blessings. We sell experiences. We sell stories. And the carpet is free. When our customer buys the carpet, he gets the blessing of our artisans and our artisan receive back the healing which comes from the customer happiness and warmth. This completes the circle and we call it totality. I would like to end by sharing a small experience I had when I was in college. I had a very strict professor of business administration. He came to my classroom and called out my roll number and asked me to stand. I got scared as to why he was asking for me, as I was a very disciplined student, and I started to think what wrong I might have done. Then he took out a test copy and showed to everyone in the class, saying that, look, the answer this boy has written. The question was, what is the definition of business? What I had replied was, business is next to love. Business is next to love. It is the creator and preserver of civilization. The professor then said, this boy will become a different businessman one day. Thank you.
NK, that is breathtaking. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I have quite a few questions.
Okay.
as I'm sure you're used to. So I've just highlighted a few things that you said that I'd like to hear a little bit more on from you.
Okay.
One of them is, you said ice cube. You referenced
Yes.
that. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? It went a little bit quick for me, so I didn't quite pick it up. But can you, when you were talking about the ice cube in that story, and because you were talking about you recognizing that you were the problem, but also about hiring professionals that themselves hadn't got the experience. So yeah, the ice cube, just bring that to life for me a little bit, if you would do.
What I have seen in my life, when we have too much knowledge, so we always take the burden of the knowledge with us, and then we lose the simplicity. And I think to be like a child is the greatest thing in the life. We must be like a child who is curious and who is not rigid. So when we become rigid and when we have a fixed mindset and we think that we know everything, it stops us from the learning. We become blind. We can't see the future. We can't see our own mistakes. So after I realize, then I can see my own mistakes, the micro ego which I developed within me.
And the ice cube is a symbol of not being rigid, but then melting, so you are filling the space. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes. This is true. This is true.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And only after that I started learning, and I am happy to tell you that now the vision which Jaipur Rugs have, all the big companies or the whole world is chasing that big vision. Because when we are not there, then the purpose comes.
Yes.
And purpose gives away vision for the future.
So I loved this idea of a school. I think you said a school of unlearning.
Yes.
it's a fantastic phrase. And again, I just want to make sure I've understood, which is that people can come with, I think the phrase I would have there is their cup is full. And so there's no room for new knowledge. But maybe I've heard something else there, which is you've made an expectation that you have to learn beyond just your academic capability.
Right.
You have to understand from the ground up what it is like, for example, to use that broom or to sit in that on that loom, and to understand how hard it is to do that, or etc. So if I've understood that correctly, it's about learning what is around you so you can value it and appreciate it. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes. I would like to give you an example that I wrote a blog on my LinkedIn about the unlearning, and the most senior strategy partner of Bain and Company, he liked my post very much and is also a very good friend of me. So this year they have chosen the theme for the CEO forum. Their first theme is unlearning, and they have included me. They say that most of the companies, including the 500 Fortune companies, the CEOs and decision maker and management people, they have got a very high ego, and ego makes a man blind, and that is very, very damaging and very destructive for their companies.
So there's something here about if you overly value your own knowledge and you believe that your knowledge and your experiences and your perception are correct, then that creates a rigidity in the way that you see the world.
Yes.
And when we come to innovation and learning and empathy, actually,
Right.
I have to be able to unlearn is interesting because senior people have had so much success that everything tells them they must be doing it the right way.
Right.
Because look, I've achieved all of these things.
Right.
So the challenge when you have a lot of confirmation that you are correct is that willingness to look outside of your own truth, I think is what I've heard. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes. I want to tell you that most of the managers, most of the decision makers, they create their own identity. And so there are two things. One is their role, and one is their identity. And identity means a false image. I create a false image of myself. And when I create a false image of myself, then I always afraid of losing it. So I don't want to lose that my own identity. So I forget my role and my identity becomes stronger. And then I became defensive and it creates the problem.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it becomes more important to me to defend my ego and the way I want people to experience me.
Right.
Because to maybe change, to acknowledge I'm doing something the wrong way, or to recognize that somebody is better at it than I am. There's a lot of things possibly there. So it requires that unlearning. I like that very much, NK. And that led me then to that finding yourself through losing yourself. In Buddhism, there is a phrase which is, all suffering is caused by wanting. And if you stop wanting, then suffering ceases, because comparison is the thief of joy. If I look at you and I want what you've got, my own happiness is dissipated. These elements I'm hearing in there, but that finding yourself through losing yourself is that release of ego, that willingness to be vulnerable, but actually within that is your strength. Have I understood that?
Yes, yes. Because the more I lose myself, the more I lose my ego, then I will develop the power of observation. Because when I'm there, I make all the decisions with the past. I will make the old decision with prejudice. And when I'm not there, my observation became so far, so good, that I can see the world as it is. And if I can't see the world as it is, then the way I see, I create the problem.
Yes. So for many people of a certain level, well, maybe just many people, if your identity, if when you're looking at the world, you're looking at it through almost, if these glasses have my identity in them and I'm looking through those,
Yes. Yes.
what I'm seeing is altered, reinforced, or my fears through this. But if I can take them off and almost be naked, then I'm going to pay attention to the world in a very different way.
Yes.
Okay. That's super helpful. Thank you. So I was also very interested. I'll get spellings after we finished, but this freedom to design. This did I say I'm Munsaha?
Mansaha. Yes. Mansaha.
Munsaha. Right. We'll have fun with that later, I'm sure. So Munsaha. Daniel Pink talks about autonomy and mastery, and he talks about purpose. And in some respects, this feels like the stepping stone after that. You know, if you have autonomy to make decisions, if you are getting better at what you do, that mastery, if you know that you're contributing to something, it gives you the space to grow, to innovate. There's psychological safety. I feel safe in my ideas. And then, if I'm reading this correctly, that freedom to design, and it could almost say the freedom to contribute, but that,
right.
And I might contribute, my design might be the rug, my design might be how this project works. In some respects, then that freedom to design, to contribute, to bring the best of myself, the artisan in me. And if my art is financials or my art is design, then it doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter how old you are. If it's there, it's there. Again, have I understood that?
Yes, correctly. Because when you get the freedom, and I would want to add two things, that the freedom should be driven by the love and direction. If we give them the three things together, then they will definitely put their heart and soul, whatever they do. And the quality of work will totally change. It will make their work divine.
So you're using, and I like it a lot, but you're, I was about to say the word but there, and I've just recognized that I said but, and I meant to say however. However, what I notice is that you're using a vocabulary. I mean, the word direction, that's fine, but to a Western mind, when we say the word love and we use the word divine, in the hard commercial markets that I see most organizations working in, those words don't sit very comfortably.
But yes,
I agree with you, but I recognize that if I hesitate, I recognize I would hesitate to say love and divine to a client I've got. And I recognize that's my fear of their reaction to those words. So I'm just recognizing that, and I don't know if you've met that reaction before, but I'm happy to recognize I'm having that reaction right now.
I think that the destination comes from the mind and the direction comes from the heart. So generally what happens in business, that we are always trying to achieve the destination, which is numbers and turnover. We are always talking about the numbers, and we became very desperate to achieve the destination. But only the numbers, they are driven by the mind. But they have no direction. So if you achieve the numbers without the direction, it is going to create the problem in the future. Because anything which is not driven by the love, if anything not driven by the heart, it is not going to sustain.
So I'm pausing slightly as I think. People will work for money because they have to.
Yes.
Or they will work for food or for clothes. They will work, the Maslow pyramid, to put a roof over their head. And that's transactional. That's maybe from a place of fear. I have to do this to survive. And I'm obedient. So I'm not following you. I'm obedient to you. What we're talking about here is, at the top of that Maslow pyramid is self-actualization. It's that
Right.
growth of
Yes.
me as an individual.
Right.
And I'm hearing you say there, if we go to that place,
Yes,
and create, you can say love, you could say genuine care, you could say
yes,
a warmth, you could
yes,
say my recognition of you as a human being, and I'm one too.
right.
But if we go to that place, I'm hearing that discretionary effort, innovation, commitment, these things flourish.
Right. I agree.
Right. Okay.
Because then what I have seen in my whole life, generally people say that I have worked hard and this is the result of my hard work. But I don't think that way. What I realized that when you were doing the hard work, what was going in your mind? If the hard worker is driven by the empathy, by the love, by the compassion, it totally changes the result.
So, NK, how do you my experience of humanity is it's a distribution curve for everything. That there are some people who gravitate towards a thing. There are some people that want to see what everybody else is doing and then they'll move towards it. And then there are those that are what I call the wolves. They're a wolf. They're, for whatever reason, their inherent characteristics, the life they've led, and they may be good people, but they've had to live a certain way to survive. And I wonder, how do you deal with, how do you stop the wrong people from maybe infecting, and that is the word, not affecting, but infecting your organization? And the reason I ask that is organizations that I work with, there is, once you go above 10 people, there is usually somebody who is playing their own game. They have their own agenda. And when you are talking like you talk, and one of the reasons I was so keen to have this conversation is I trust you. I can imagine that some people think that this is an easy place to be a wolf because they think they're amongst sheep.
Right.
And I wonder, I have this model, which is shepherd, sheepdog. So the shepherd guides, the sheepdog contributes, and then below the line, there's the sheep who are kind of obedient but doing what they're told, and then you've got the wolf. And I see you as the shepherd. And I wonder how you handle the wolves.
Yes, I think that is a great question. And generally people don't talk about this in their businesses. Everybody is suffering, but nobody talk about this. My experience said that I was the biggest sufferer in my life by this cunning, by this smart, by dishonest people. And I realized it very, very late that what is the problem. And ultimately I found that they are not the problem. As I told you before, I am the problem. Why I am the problem? Because I never defined my core. I never defined my vision, values, my principles. And ultimately, Ben and Company help us to define our core. So from last 3-4 years, we are only taking the people, we are only recruiting the people who are driven by the love, empathy, compassion, and the people who are searching the purpose in their life, the people who are searching in the meaning in their life. And we started replacing those people who are very smart and not those are the people who not very aligned with the values of Jaipur Rug, with the purpose of Jaipur Rug. So I think we must define the values and the purpose of our business, and must take only those people who are aligned with them, and it will transform the whole industry.
So this for you then is absolute clarity, that, and taking that from what you feel and what you know and what you do, but putting it into an overt form, almost like a lighthouse, so you can turn the lighthouse light on.
Yes.
and you can say, that's what good looks like. And you can all see it, so there's no confusion. And if you're ever unsure, because maybe somebody above you is trying to take you away from the light, well, there it is.
Yes,
So
yes.
I've understood that. That's really what we've said there. Absolute clarity, and make it known to people. So
Yes.
they don't have to be exposed to you. They don't have to go, well, I think what he's trying to say is, it's very clear. Yes. Okay. So, NK, I mean, this is a story, and you are a person who I could talk to for probably about 2 weeks. So I have to be careful. I have to be very careful about what I do here. So there might be an episode 2, but I think I have two probable questions. One is, when you live a life where you are open to learning, it can be different to some people. You know, they have this one moment in their life where, oh, that put me on the right track. I have a sense that you were on the right track from the start, but, you know, because of the upbringing, the who you are. So is there one, maybe 2, but is there one book, one scripture, one conversation, one moment of personal reflection that you can point to that said, that's the bit that really, or that's one of the stepping stones, that if I hadn't had that conversation or met that person or read that book or that poem or whatever it is, I'd have been less for not having done that? And I'd love you to share something like that.
I think since I started this business, I was driven by my heart. And I realized very soon that there is a compass within ourselves, who continuously says us, are you going in the right direction or not? So I listen myself. But my transformation happened 7-8 years before, when I started Jaipur Rug and my business started growing like the wildfire. So there were so many family members. My 5 children joined the business, and more professionals joined the business. And at that time, I found that with so many people, my values are not matching. And I was in stress. And I don't know what was happening. And at that time, I realized that if I can't change the situation, I will start changing myself. Then I started working on myself. I started a deep introspection each morning. And I started working on my own consciousness. And I'm happy to say that the change which I got in last 8 years is changing my whole family. and it is changing the whole organization. So the secret is that if you can't change the situation and then you take the responsibility, you start changing yourself. And when you start changing yourself, you will see the results in your organization.
Thank you, NK. And my second to last question, and it's a little bit of it's a cheeky question, but because there's a humbleness to you that I respect, but I'm going to still ask it. What's the best bit of advice that you've ever given somebody?
Love yourself and love whatever we do. Because self-love is the most important thing in our life.
So thank you. And what is the future? My last question, just to respect your time here. What is the future? If we speak again in 10 years for a podcast that says, where are we now? What does that look like for you and Jaipur Rugs? Give me a sense of what you have in your mind as to where you're going.
I see the future as it is, that each and every artisan of Jaipur Rug will be the artist, and he will be connected with the world of design. So the end consumer, interior designers, architect, and our viewers and designers in India, they will co-create. Because in the carpet industry, everybody was working in silos. That is why they can't create a great future. So I think co-creation will be the future.
So getting rid of boundaries, getting rid of that human filter that we put on things, and just coming together to do something that adds value to ourselves and to others.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Well, NK, I'm going to bring us to an end, and I'm going to ask you just to stay on for a few more moments so we can chat at the end.
Okay.
But I loved the conversation that we had a few weeks ago. I'm so grateful that you spent the time to do this. I think anybody that is busy running an organization and then can make time to do this is doing something very generous. So I have, I've done about 45 episodes now of this podcast, and you absolutely resonate. And what you're doing is really, really very powerful. So I just want to say thank you from myself. And I'm sure there will be listeners that have loved this episode. So thank you very much, NK.
Thank you.